Hey Greg, welcome to Kapow. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. I only go where I'm invited. I tried doing it the other way and it didn't work out well at all. Thanks for having.
I guess we'll start at the beginning. How did you get your first start in the industry?
You know what? My background is theater. I had a pal in the English department who dragged me to a theater project early on in college, and by opening night, the head of the theater department said, "What are you doing in the English department?" I said, "I'm not exactly sure." He said, "Well, you're the kind of raw meat we like to feed and water, so I'm encouraging you to expand your horizons." And so I did, and it's kind of been a passion play ever since. And kind of the way I got dragged along is he said, "You always like to pepper everything you're doing with voices. And when you tell a story, you tell it through the eyes of the characters in the story." And anyway, I still do. And it's still fresh for me. And I'm still Cinderella going to the ball every time you put a script in my hand. I enjoy paying it forward to a next generation whenever I get the opportunity, but I'm still doing everything I ever did. So I haven't decided what I want to be when I grow up. So until that happens, this is working out quite well. Thank you.
You've been blessed to work on so many franchises.
You know what? It's the characters that are iconic, and I get to follow them throughout their arcs and curves and seasons, and it's a jolly ride from the beginnings of Transformers and GI Joe and the Garfield franchise and Real Monsters and Men in Black and all the interactive gaming franchises. And I like to think I'm very good to them, and they've been very good to me. It's a happy tale. And I'm going to say I'm one of the lucky ones. I know so many deserving people who haven't had quite the same career opportunities or good fortune or whatever you want to call it. Not less deserving, just haven't been under the Blarney Stone or whatever. I love getting to do what I love. I'm among the fortunate, let's put it that way.
When you're a kid, did you read or watch some of the programs you ended up working
Well,
on?
yeah, I mean, you know, I was that kid on the living room floor on Saturday morning with my head on my hands, watching Bugs Bunny and Daffy and all the Looney Tunes. But to think that I'd be sitting in a studio at Hanna-Barbera next to Mel Blanc on a Jetsons session, that was one of the early things I did. I had been seen in a traveling company, traveled to Los Angeles, and I was fortunate enough to be asked into the company of Cloud9. And Gordon Hunt, who was doing all the voice direction at Hanna-Barbera in those days, had asked to say hello after the performance. And get this, I was an understudy in that company. And the time came at half hour when the person I was covering was unable to make the curtain, and boom, I went into adrenaline overload and went on short notice, just adrenaline through the roof. But everything was the stars were aligned, and everything went right. And he said. He said, "If you're as versatile as what we saw on stage, we should know about you at Hanna-Barbera." And I felt my life go into slow motion. And without missing a beat, I said, if this is, opportunity, I'm not going to let it pass by. You've had my demo for months. If you'd move it from the bottom of the pile to the top, I'd love to be working with everybody there. And he said, "Gee, you busted me real good, huh?" And I said, "Normally I'm polite to a fault, often at my own expense, but if I didn't say anything, he would have forgotten by the time he got to his car." He didn't. He called me in less than a week. He introduced me and said, "You believe the nerve of this kid?" I was one of the new kids. He seated me intentionally, and he told me so, next to Mel Blanc. I saw Mel Blanc fall asleep in session and wake up as Mr. Spacely and go from Jetson. So that happened in my real life. These are the moments that you hold on to, and you hope you can do that for somebody else somewhere along the way.
I see you have a Duckman poster in the background. Do you go in with a different perspective when it's more an adult-focused cartoon?
Different, yeah, but they're all beautiful journeys of their own. The caliber of the writing is so stellar. I don't think there would have been a Family Guy if there hadn't been a Duckman. It pushed so many envelopes. The audience kind of had to catch up to that show at the time that it first came on. um, it was a very, very ahead of its time show when it first came on. But man, what a cast. It was. Well, there's Duckman stories all their own, aside from the caliber of the writing and the caliber of the cast, and me and Jason Alexander and Dweezil Zappa and Tim Curry and Nancy Travis and Pat Music. And it was just, summer camp for gifted adults. It was nuts. But I have been cast in by Warner Brothers in Police Academy Mission to Moscow. I was on location in Russia through a lot of the first season of Duckman, and they let me record from my hotel room in Moscow and send the tracks back with the film pack. They would retrieve it and cut those lines into the show, and then I would re-record the dialogue when I got back to Los Angeles. But how nuts is that? You really can be two places at one time if one of the gigs is animation. So those are memories I'll never forget either. So there's a different level of the humor and the sophistication, but animation is animation. You're just pumping up the reality, but there still has to be a reality to pump up, and it's still about interaction between characters, and you have to form a family, whether it's Garfield and Odie, that's a buddy comedy like Abbott and Costello. It's just one of the characters has to bark and slurp and emote, but it's still a couple of buddies hanging around getting into trouble. But they all have a level of reality. But that's the same kind of thing. There's a reality in the theater where you have to tell the truth to the back row of an audience, or a film camera where you got to tell the truth to a camera that's 6 inches from your eyeball. They're all translation problems, or at least that's the way I perceive it.
You played H&K, which was already based on Tommy Lee Jones' character. Did you use him as inspiration?
Well, heck yes. If you're going to steal, you might as well steal from the best. Shoot him, Jay. He's a cerebrofaculoid. The brains are in their bottoms. You know where to aim. We had the best time. And again, when you're handed scripts, 22-minute scripts that could easily be 90-minute animated features if they wanted to be, like really, really quality animation, not just animation, like really cool scripts. And plus we could neuralize anything we didn't like, so that was plenty cool too. And we had guest stars like David Warner. It was like doing radio plays in the golden age of radio. There was a real pin drop feeling in the studio. We were like doing radio, and then they would animate to it. Not that I don't have ultimate respect for the animators, because most of these situations, at least in the studios I've been fortunate enough to work in, it's a cultivated collaboration between the writers and the artists, or at least I make it my business to get into the cubicles of the artists and the writers and figure out what's going on in the other areas, because I'm not a blah 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 my line performer. I don't think that gets anything accomplished for anybody. I want to be part of the team. I know that makes everything sort of contagiously better. That's the whole point as far as I'm concerned. But between the art and the caliber of the writing, I just thought it was a ridiculously good show, and it kind of ended on a cliffhanger, and then we never got to stop hanging on the cliff because we thought we were coming back for another season, and it never panned out. Not that it couldn't. Shows have a way of coming back around these days. It's kind of fantastic.
The recent success of X-Men 97, there's rumors that they might bring back SpiderMan, the animated series. You played a few characters on that as well.
I got to play Craven and Mysterio. Quentin Beck, the master of special effects and treachery. I had a good time being the Bubblehead. There's been a lot of Mysterios, but I'll stand by mine. I had a really nice time. Stan Lee used to come into our sessions, Spider-Man, the animated series. And at that time, not that there haven't been so many incarnations of Spider-Man since, but at that time, he said he felt like he was seeing the book realized as an animated series. He was very pleased with how it was cast, how it was done, the way the storylines went. He felt like it was a very, very nice depiction of his vision. So that's like crazy compliment. Plus, I don't know that there was a nicer gentleman on the planet.
It's actually quite amazing what watching those animations as a kid do, because even today when I read the comics, I hear those voices when I'm reading them.
You do it. I mean, if you're raised on comic books, you do hear voices in your head. You're telling yourself the story. You're reading it as a graphic. I mean, I think that's what most kids do. You sort of hear it as you read it, and it's nice to sort of play into that as an animated voice. It's a responsibility. I don't think for a minute that it's not. I think that's the fun of it. I think you're entrusted with being a part of something that started long before you got there and will go on long after you leave the booth. But I think sadly, well, unnecessarily, a lot of performers with egos that are maybe overinflated kind of overestimate their own importance in the mix. You want to be part of the team.
Is there a favorite project you worked on, or one that holds a special place in your heart?
It's whatever I'm working on at the moment. It really is. Because of longevity, Grimlock in Transformers has been such a huge part of my life. And you don't know when you do your first gig and when you get the gig. And when you, Wally Burr, who was the director of the original Transformers and the original G.I. Joe, and I had a big positioning in both shows through a long run of a lot of episodes over a lot of years. Just the sheer volume of time and the bonding and the friendships that I was able to make, most of which are still going on. I have to put that and the Garfield franchise, just for sheer longevity, up top. But all of them have some tremendous hold on me. But I got a call from Wally Burr on the Grimlock character. Me Dinobot. There was some concern. He said, I got good news and bad news. I said, tell me both. He said, Hasbro loves you for Grimlock, but there's concern about whether you can maintain and sustain a character that's like a tonsil buster. I said, put me in, coach. I'll figure it out. But I think I'm a better, stronger, more versatile actor because I figured out a way to wrap my tonsils around it. And I said, I'll hit it out of the park every time. Just give me the opportunity and I'll make it work. And I did, and I have, and it's decades later, and I have travel opportunities all over the world. It's a very popular convention stop at my table, and I'm still reaping the benefits. And it's a joyous association for me. And I think I've been very good to Grimlock, and Grimlock's been very good to me. Me no so but I found a way to make it work for me, and I know how to do that.
Speaking of saving your tonsils, is there any techniques you can share to look after your voice?
Well, there are, and the first and foremost is to be economical with it. Don't be the last guy at the pub, and don't be the loudest guy at the party, and be economical, and don't be afraid to say, I have a session in the morning and I need to protect this because it's taking care of me. But also, there are a lot of things that you can learn from people who are academically and practically aware of how to use the instrument. And there are things you can do to press out on your vocal cords rather than in. And the things that you do that compress the vocal cords are harmful to them. But if you can learn to do things that expand them rather than compress them, then you can make them last for a lifetime. Same thing in these Hanna-Barbera sessions. I mean, I was working with Dawes Butler and Mel Blanc and people who were, I was the new kid and they were the seasoned veterans, but they knew how to make it last for a lifetime. And I wanted to drink it all in and find out how to make it work for me in similar ways. And June Foray and Janet Waldo, and just, I thought I'm working with my heroes. And they're not household names, but boy, their characters are, For me, that was like, I can't believe this is my life, and I can't believe I'm here doing this, and, they know who I am. It's pretty special.
Last character question. You worked as the Pain in Metal Gear Solid 3. Could you talk about that?
Yeah. The Pain. Oh, it's kind of hard not to compress that when there's bees everywhere. Those franchises, and I remember when there were some introductory videos when we began working on the franchise that said the goal of this enterprise is to make it more of an immersive experience than a quote unquote game. And I think that's where the industry was going at that time. And boy, it's all in now. The game is it's not a big enough word anymore because the experiences are so immersive. The graphics are so ridiculously beautiful. Even if you're not a game player, even if you're sitting behind the guy who's massively playing, it's just hypnotic to watch. And the art form just gets more and more and more unbelievable. But as far as badge of pride, to be associated with Metal Gear is astonishing. Some conventions feature Metal Gear exclusively, and it's nice to be part of that club also.
And did you get to work with Hideo Kojima at all for the English voiceover?
Not present. Not present. Only in that introductory way by way of a video, for a remote video.
Being a video game, I guess it was more solo work. You weren't opposite David Hayter at all?
No, I've done conventions with him, but I don't think we've ever done a session together. Great people. Yeah, really nice.
Speaking of conventions, how have you found the experience over the years?
You know what? I've had such incredible, and am about to again in Melbourne and Gold Coast with Supanova in April. Just strictly from a travel opportunity, I've seen so much of the world by invitation as a special guest. And if I weren't a special guest at these fabulous conventions, I might well be an attendee. I love the energy. I love the vibe. And to fly thousands of miles and be greeted by a line of people waiting to say hello and thank you while I'm showing up to say hello and thank you is a very beautiful thing. Panels are always informative, hopefully for the audience, but also for me. It's interesting to see in different countries what people are most interested in. Sometimes a show, the nice thing about shows that are not specifically topical is they may be um, higher up the charts in a different place at a different time, and that's always interesting to me. Um, but that's the beauty of it. You think these products, I don't even like to talk about them as products, but you think about these shows as being specific to an area, but finding out that they are kind of global in their appeal is a mind blower. And it's a small planet, and it kind of makes me feel like singing "Kumbaya" and "We Are All Together" and like that. But it's really it's really reassuring. I like it.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
And for all the fans out there, go check out supanova.com.au for his appearances in Melbourne and Gold Coast.